We'd like to welcome each and every individual to Voices of Integrity podcast for the history for Synergy Solutions and Action Vision as well. We were talking in the pre-show about it, and I'm questioning, is this really have value? Because if it doesn't have value, don't take my time or anybody else's time doing it for sure. And so I think that's like, I don't remember, like on the past podcast, I don't remember I share this or not or what. And so, Nora met Mike Kaspar, but I don't know that, she knows the story behind Mike. So the history of something is not only the history of that, but it's the history of everything before the history of that. And so there is forever a appreciation I'll have for Mike and Debbie, his wife. Um, and so, um, So Roseanne and I and when we were in college, we had, so we're going full time to college, 15, 18 credit hours, have a full time night custodian job that she and I are working together, but we figured out how to get it done together really, really fast. And then had some part time jobs and then started Grandma B's Cleaning Services, which was commercial and residential cleaning. Had the coolest logo of all the logos we ever created. It was really neat. Young lady did it, and it was just beautiful. And it was the specialist in cleaning with the old fashioned touch. And so we that Grandma B's Cleaning Services was successful, and so we hired our first employee, and we went down to Florida for a week and a half, 2 weeks, a couple years after we were married. And I'm telling you, it was 2 years actually. It was the 2 years after we got married. Yeah, year and a half, 2 years after. Um, and Our landlord, he owned a couple condos down there, and we were talking. He says, "Oh yeah, you can go ahead and go." And so we went, and it was so much fun. But it was kind of a pain because we had all these complaints in our employee, and she wasn't the best employee in the world when we were around, but when we weren't around, she was worse. She didn't clean, and it was a mess. So I'm on vacation, and I'm, dealing with all kinds of stuff. And so that was really interesting. Um, so we were in college and, young and all of that. And so we would have been maybe 23 years old, 22, maybe 22 years old. And, you know, we got back and stuff and we did flyers and advertisements and a whole bunch of stuff for Grandma B's Cleaning Services. And we got a client that was over in Fox Hollow subdivision. It was a new subdivision. And it was Mike and Debbie Kaspar. And so we went over there and, did everything. And Debbie, she's kind of the kind of woman that, you know, uh, my perception is, and Debbie, I'm sure you'll be hearing this too. Um, like she likes things, she's like Nora, I think. She likes things clean. And so she's always fascinated me where some of our customers would clean before we'd come in and clean. Like like Elaine, she knows that. It's like that's just kind of interesting. It's like, okay. In a way, it makes your job a lot easier. In another way, it makes it a lot harder because you're like, I don't know, it seems pretty clean to me. And so once we got on our answering machine. This is before computers. Well, not before computers, but there were computers and the internet. Yeah, it's not much. So we had an answering machine and we got a complaint that they weren't happy with something. And so we're driving over, it's at night. And so we had a guarantee that we'd come and fix it if there was any problems. And so we were driving over there and Rosanna was crying on the way over. She's like, so she and I, at that time, we were doing all the work. And so she cleaned, I cleaned, we we're both cleaning. And I don't know what it was, if it was a kitchen or bathroom or something. It was area where Rosanna cleaned. And so she was hurt that, that it wasn't. And she's crying. And I said, honey, I don't know. God's got something for it. It's okay. So we went over there and fixed up, and it was fine. And they were super sweet and super nice. And then we got to talking to them. So we got talking to them. So at that time, it had been a little over, a couple years we were married. And we were in a 2-bedroom apartment at the time. And so we went, we were talking to him, and he's a CPA, certified public accountant. And she was a professional, I think, in technology. And so she went ahead and so we talked afterwards, and come to find out they were looking for a church. And I'd come back from college because in part because the main family that left my dad's church, big financial supporters and everything. So the church was struggling. It was like, I don't know if we're going to make it. And so, you're a little nervous because you come into church and there's, I don't know, 15 people there or 20 people there. It's like, and this is a young, very successful couple. I mean, both very professional. This is before either of us had any kids. And so, yeah, we'd have been maybe 21, 22 years old. And so we talked and stuff, and we invited them to the church. And they said, yeah, we might come by and visit. And we went ahead and they came that next Sunday. My mom, she played the piano, but for some reason she wasn't there or wasn't available. So there was nobody to play the piano. And I mean, there's like, I don't know, 15, 20 people or something. There's 15, 20 people there. And Debbie just said, I'll play. And she just got up and played. Anyways, they were very, very critical. They were very, very critical of critical key people in the church. And it was a young couple and successful and stuff. And so my guess is, I don't know, but my guess is, financially they tie them, guessing, and very, very key couple. And so would that church be in existence today without Mike and Deb? I don't know. We don't know, but they were very, very close. And then I graduated from college. And I was looking for a job, and Mike said, hey, I've become a loan officer. So he was a CPA, but then he was also, an owner of he had in a startup company. He was in a startup company, and then he also was a loan officer too. So he had a lot of different things going on. So he's the one that introduced me to Preferred Mortgage Associates. And that's where I learned how to sell. 100% straight commission position. And advanced very, very quickly in that. It would be fun to interview Mike, going back all of those years. So almost 40 years. And then in addition to that, then they invited Greg and Patty Sutton to come to the church too. And so they were a young couple, and they were participating in, they were in business together. And so they both started coming to the church too, Greg and Patty. So now you have this young couple, the number of young couples. And so when you have young couples, and then we started having kids together and all that kind of stuff. And then that one company that Mike and Greg and Patty were in, it was pet insurance. That one didn't really take off. But Greg and Patty started a company called Terraces, which was a computer consulting company. And because we went to church and knew each other, they asked me to be on their board of directors. And then I became a loan officer at the mortgage company. And so started to go ahead and see a lot of success there. Man, I saw a lot of success there. It was unbelievable. And so if Mike hadn't introduced me to the mortgage industry, I don't know that I'd even been in the mortgage industry. My whole life would have been different without Mike. And that all came back to them being part of Grandma Bees and having a complaint, and then us going and servicing it all well. So I didn't realize it was going to turn out that good. I'm like, wow. So if we didn't have that complaint, we wouldn't have gotten to know them. They wouldn't have come, probably. We wouldn't have gotten to know them. They would have never come to the church. They would have never introduced me to Preferred Mortgage Associates. I wouldn't have had any of that experience. And then after 4 years with Preferred Mortgage Associates, I was looking at, I resigned from there, and I didn't know what I was going to do, something. And so I said, I'm going to start a company. And so I started talking to Greg and Patty Sutton, which again came through Mike. And so we decided to start Synergy Solutions, started Synergy Solutions. And so with Greg and Patty and Dave Haas. And so all of that came as a result of Mike Kaspar. And so they went ahead, and after, I don't know what it was, if it was 10 years or something, they moved to Nashville, I think it was, Tennessee area, somewhere in Tennessee. And they've lived there, I think, ever since then. And he's just retiring as a CPA now, sold his practice and stuff like that. So Nora went ahead and said, in the pre-show, so her first year, Action Vision is going to set a goal for $250,000. And she's like, that seems to be a lot. So I made $1 an hour for the first 3 months I was working with Preferred Mortgage Associates. Went into the president company, pounded on his desk and said, Tony, I'm doing everything you guys are telling me to do, and none of it's working. And he said, you got to be patient. It takes, 12 to 18 months. And I said, I don't have time. My wife is, now 6 months pregnant. We just bought a house, and it was right down the street from Mike and Deb, actually, which is a fascinating story because it's a HUD repossessed home. And so that was the first mortgage I ever did, was on my own house, which was another story. There's so many stories. And when I said, Tony, I don't have, 12 to 18 months to be successful. I got to do something now because I'm dying. And he said, well, what do you think you ought to do? And I said, well, I think I ought to do this, this, and this. And he said, well, go do it. And so fortunately, Grandma Bee's cleaning services, I gained experience in that. And then I started another company when I was in college, and it was called Future Unlimited, and it was bringing in computers into into colleges and using token machines. Another fascinating. So all of these past stories are a part of Synergy and a part of Action Vision. They just are. And so I went ahead and took a month to develop my first tool, and it was called the Open House Sales Key. And so I'm like, okay, I love people, I just don't like them. That's not good for sales. If you like people, it's much better. And I'm like, and I'm an introvert, and I don't like to go out and make sales calls, and I'm nervous, and my analytic is, and I don't know what I'm doing, and they gave me the wrong. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. But I'm like, I got a wife who's 6 months pregnant. I got to do what I got to do. And I just did it. And it didn't work. Like, I did everything they told me to do, and it didn't work. Stupid stuff. And so I said, I got to build a better trap. And so I created this open house sales key and used technology so I could do it really fast. So I analyzed different homes so I used my finance degree, my management degree, and my marketing degree, which is really cool because sometimes people get, a college degree and they don't use it, which, how can you do that? Like, I didn't like college that much, didn't like school that much. So I got to use all of different parts of my education in that. And so I went out there after 4 months and accomplished more in a week than I had in 4 months. And then 6 months after I joined the company, I was promoted to regional manager. 6 months after that, marketing manager. And a year and a half after that, a vice president of sales with an equity position in company. So that was up until I was 26, 27. And I was on track to make $460,000 at, 26, 27. I was on track to make $460,000 and had $1 million in equity. So 250,000, $250,000 sounds like a lot of money. And I'm not saying it's not. But I didn't have a system that was proven. Like it didn't work. Stupid thing didn't work. So I had to rebuild it, re-engineer it, go through it, and go through a lot of stuff. And so I went through all of those things. I went through all of those things, and I learned how to bring added value in selling. So it's not about a commodity, it's about bringing added value. So in future sessions, that would be ideal. Like there's what I've noticed about old people is, and when I say old, they might be 20 years old. So you can have somebody that's 20 years old and they're older than somebody who's 90 years old. Like Alvin Miller. Like I meet with him every week. He's 84, I think. He's younger than most 20 or 30-year-olds. And so because of how he thinks. And so there's a little distraction there. What's the distraction? How come Nora gets all the attention? Like, happy birthday, Nora.
It was yesterday, but thanks.
Well, I like to think that we should celebrate, our birthdays for a week, or a month,
Especially if it's a
So,
birthday.
yeah, for a whole, that just makes it more fun for everybody. So in future history things, throughout the week, I might drop things to eat different ones, and I might say, "Oh, this is a great story," and so I'm not a natural storyteller. To me, I'm a driver personality. I don't really like stories; they take time. As a professional speaker, you learn how to condense your story and say as few words as possible so you get the full impact of the story without it taking any more time, because you got a lot of stuff that you want to do, but you don't want to seem rushed in it. And so, but what I do know is that stories tend to stick. And so, what was it like the first year in business? I could share that in Synergy. There's so many lessons that I learned in, we could go back all the way when I was 18 years old and in college and started a convenience store, and then, set up two other ones in the girls' dorms. Rosanna was one of one of my distributors. I'll never forget that story. Like I go over and I give them all their merchandise, and so they get a percentage. I go ahead and fund the whole thing. Like I fund the whole thing. I go ahead and fund it. They bring in. We have all kinds of food and all this for the convenience store in the girls' dorms. And I'm like, okay, so here's all the food and then the books and everything. And then I'm like, I go to collect the money. So they get a percentage of the profit. So there's a profit, I don't know, I think 50-50 split, and I'm like, so here's what you guys owe. And she's like, we don't have any money. I'm like, excuse me? Like, she's like, yeah, we don't have any money. Like, what do you mean you don't have any money? And this is a Bible college. Oh, I could tell you a story about that. So, anyways, so it's like nobody's gonna steal from you. Like it's a Bible college. This is Faith Baptist Bible in Ankeny, Iowa. That's where Rosanna and I met. And she's like, I'm like, what happened to the money? And she says, well, all the girls in the dorm wanted a pizza party. I'm like, okay. And so we just took all the money from the business. And 50% of that is my money. Like, you don't take my money for a party for the girls, And guys couldn't be on the dorm, so I couldn't be invited, to that. But there is an interesting story. And it was funny because Alvin went ahead and actually brought this up about a business he had too. And it's interesting. So 18 years old, and I have this big, huge, convenience store. I didn't have a permit for it, and I wasn't supposed to have it. I mean, this thing was like this, and it was epic because word got around campus. word got around campus, yeah, you want anything, Mark's got it in his dorm. Like they come and I don't know, a couple months into it, like it's an honor system, but they're pastors, there's missionaries. Like this is what they're Christians and they're pastors and that's what they're studying to be. And I'm like, wait a minute. And so I found out they were stealing from my store. So this is some of the best advice that I've ever had.
How'd you find out?
Well, because you have inventory. So you have inventory, you match up inventory. It's just like a regular store. Like I had quite an operation. Like it was insane. It was insane. The Pontiac Firebird was not the best, for loading up everything. I mean, it was so funny. Anyways, and I'm like, so I guess I was whining I'm like ticked off. I'm like, I can't believe like Christians, pastor people at a Bible college are stealing from me. Like, that's just crazy. I was like, you got to be kidding. Finally, Daryl Gomez, the RA, he's like, Mark, I'm tired of your whining. It's a cost of doing business. Like, if you don't like it, get out of business. And I'm like, well, that makes sense. So when you're whining, you don't ever solve problems. You're whining. So get over the whining and just go ahead. So what I did is I wrote out a big sign, and because I couldn't be there, I couldn't man the place the whole time. So people would come in when I was there, which was fine. I had credit. I think I had the whole enterprise. I mean, people could buy it on credit. I mean, it was just amazing. And so I said, did you come to Faith Baptist Bible College to study to be a pastor and a missionary and steal from me? It worked. All the theft stopped. All this theft stopped until somebody tore the sign down. I'm like, really? So they're guilt. So I learned a lot from that. I'm not saying, all pastors, but this was a whole college of pastors that there were more than one that was stealing from me. Not every one of them. I'm not saying every pastor. I'm just saying. And it was interesting. Another valuable lesson is, so I would buy in huge bulk. I mean, huge bulk. I would go ahead and when the sales on the stores were on, I'd go out and buy it up. I mean, I had it packed. It was unbelievable. And then there were some guys upstairs. They thought I was charging too much. So they decided to start competing against me. And I'm like, what? And they charged like 5 cents less. And I was starting to lose business. And I'm like, well, this isn't good. And then we got into a price war. And so finals were coming up, and finals is when all the college students stay up and study, and they need a whole bunch of pop and a whole bunch of other stuff. So I'm like, I got to put these guys out of business. I'm going to put them out of business. I'm taking them down. Yes.
You could have just gone and bought their stuff so they didn't have any, and then you could price it up to whatever, and you still could have made money on it.
See, this is Nora. She's natural. This is part of being raised Amish. Like, this is, you English, you learn something in third grade. In third grade in the Amish, this is how you put a competitor out of business. Don't for a minute think they're nice. No, they are. Well, I don't know. How does she know that? That's exactly what I did. Drove the price way down. Then I got my roommates down on the bottom. They went up and bought all their inventory, wiped them out. And they couldn't, I had all the inventory. So we got it down where it was below cost, wiped them all out, then took all their inventory. They couldn't go out and get any more inventory. I had all the inventory, jacked the price back up. It's exactly. See, Nora's a natural business person. She looks nice and sweet. She's not. She'll absolutely wipe you out. So these are valuable lessons. And so all of these lessons, are part of Synergy Solutions. And so in future history, it'd be nice to have you guys like, what is it that you're interested in? Like, I mean, there's 34 years of stories. And so Nora said, she didn't have the confidence. If I can make it, and if I can be on track to make 460,000 and I'm 20, 26, 27, and I don't have a system, she can do it. I mean, there's just no question. The key is, like Tom Kuhn says, trust the integrity of the system and then know your numbers. So she's got to make a certain number of calls. She's got to set up a certain number of appointments. She's got to go ahead and learn how to leverage. She's got to learn how to market. She's got to learn. There's so many things that she needs to learn, but she's not on her own. I was on my own, and I had to figure all this stuff out on my own. And so she leverages all of the experience that I have, all the years, all the decades, and then she brings her own experience and her own energy into it. And it's really not the thing that I enjoy most about Nora is that it's not about her. She obviously has to care for herself and her son. So she has to care for herself and her son. But it's not about the 250. It's about stewardship. I believe when Nora's a great steward of time, talent, her time, talent, treasure, trust, truth, temple, and thought, and mine too, that, yesterday, like this whole week, we were both sick. She's working, I'm working, we're making calls, and she says, well, you don't need to do that. So I'm in a season of life where I don't have to work. I don't have to make money. And it's a great season of life. But it took me 24 years longer than what I had hoped it would, which was fine. I mean, most men don't go ahead and can stop working at 54 years old. I mean, I love working. I'll be working the rest of my life. So 54 is not a bad. I mean, it's nothing to be ashamed of. I feel very, very blessed to be able to do that. But how cool would it be how cool would it have been if somebody had helped me? I could have done it a lot sooner. And so I had a goal of doing it in 3 years, and it took me, 23, 24 years. Like, which again is fine. What else am I going to do? But if we don't go ahead and steward our 7Ts and the 7Ts of others well, so it's not just about Nora making $250,000. That's not at all. It's not on her heart or mine. I'm excited for her to do it. I just am. Like, it will be easier for the next generation after Nora because she'll be tracking so many things and say, here's the faster way, or maybe they'll make more, maybe half of it. It's not about the money. It's about the pursuit of it. It's about the stewardship of it. It's about the discipline of it. It's about the leverage of it. It's about, and everybody else. When the tide rises, all the ships in that port are going to rise. I mean, Kenny and Luke, they have a goal to go, there's a second year in business, they had almost 300% increase in sales. So they, over 800,000 is what they're looking at. The first year was like 300,000. Second year was like 800,000. This next year, they're shooting for the goal is 2.5 million. And so I believe that Nora's 250,000 for her business for herself, that's going to help Dreamscape, and Dreamscape is going to help her. Compass, this is their second full year in business. She will help them, they will help her. So Zig Ziglar said, if you help enough other people get to their goals, they're going to help you get to your goals. I would be very intentional with that because in my experience, a lot of times you help other people, they might not help you. So I would be very intentional about that. And then I would make sure that we're always doing our part to be thankful and grateful to the people like I am to Mike. Like I will be forever thankful, indebted to him, just appreciative of him for everything that he and Deb did and what he did, and being able to be a great encouragement and open up doors for after college and everything that happened there. And so hopefully this is helpful. Um, I'm far more interested in your story and what you want your story to be. One last thing. Like Nora's a double analytic, and so she's more analytic than I am. And so she's a double analytic. I'm a very strong analytic. So she's she's a two, which is the highest you can be. I'm a three, and I'm pretty high. So she and I both have, people are like, you're negative, you're a negative person. It's like, no, what I'm doing is I'm seeking to learn from the past and see the future. And I can see that we're not going to get to our goals if we don't do this and this and this and this. This is not negative. This is just if we can see what's going to happen before it happens and we change our behavior, well, that increases the statistical probability of being able to learn and grow. Nora's got an advantage over me, so she can make far more money than I can, which is cool. There would be nothing that would make me more excited than that, except if Elaine and Becky and Anita, like I just love women making more money than men. I really do. Like I really do. So hopefully this has been beneficial to you. Bring something, for the next one. Think about like how can this time be really, really precious and really, really helpful, not only to you, but all future generations. Like, Nora's been doing this for, I don't know, 4 or 5 months, something like that. So what does she wish she knew 4 or 5 months, ago that she now knows? Elaine's been doing this for a few years. What does she wish she knew, you know, that she now knows? Like this isn't a history, in a way it kind of seems stupid to me. I don't really like doing this because it's not about me. It's just not. And so what is it that you can do that'll accelerate your learning? What is it that you can do to accelerate somebody else's learning? So I think the reason it's so fun for me to work with Nora and Elaine and Ginger Ann and Becky and Anita and Rosanna and all of Katie, all the ones that I do, is because it's fun because I know that they're concerned. They put other people above themselves. They go ahead and want to see success not only for themselves, but the success of others. And that's very special. That is like the DNA, I think, of synergy and the DNA of Wealth Masters Institute. So thanks, everybody. Have a blessed day.